here. And this week, I am very pleased to introduce Jayden Libran. Hi, Jayden.
Hi, Zelda. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Let's get down to
Awesome.
it.
Yeah. So before we dive into this week's topic and all the questions that I have, would you mind just giving us a little bit of an intro about yourself, where you might have heard you from?
Yeah, so my name is Jayden LeBron. I'm 26 years old from Southern California. I've worked on various shows such as Beavis and Butthead, the popular YouTube and now Amazon Prime series Hell of a Boss, Duncanville on Fox, Candy Cane Lane, the movie called You People with Eddie Murphy. I was in an episode of Raven's Home. I work for the Jim Henson Company as a puppeteer, where I've done Happy Time Murders and Puppet Up. I do my own content with puppets called The Sneeple on YouTube, and various music videos with Bad Baby, Bad Bunny, various other people, Chris Stapleton, Joy Lottacoon. I'm sort of a jack of all trades, so I do it all.
Wow, that's amazing. And one of the topics that we do want to talk about today is impressions.
Oh,
We get a lot of
wonderful.
questions from our members here on SkillsHub.life about, our impressions, impressions and half content creation. Because, for those of you that don't know me or are a little bit familiar with me, the one of the ways that I started out as well was with voice impressions and content creation. That for me personally kind of paved my way into the voiceover field. So that's why I thought the two of us would be perfect to kind of tackle this topic. So my first question for you would be, how relevant do you find that impressions, or I guess we would say voice matching, is in this industry today?
I think it's especially relevant, and I don't believe it has never not been relevant. Some of the biggest comedians and stars and things like that, in many cases, got their start playing other people,
Mm,
portraying people like Charlie Chaplin, portraying people up and down the aisle. It was celebrity impressions that got them known, and many people, especially on SNL and Second City and other shows, impersonating other people. I think it especially extends well to voiceover because, as we know, for one, there's a growing threat against AI, and no one
hmm
wants their voice to be replaced by a machine. And I think
exactly.
there adds a human component to it, and a realness to it, when people can pass on the torch with a character. Matthew Lillard has successfully inherited the role of Shaggy,
Mm-hmm.
and has done that for some 20 something years from Casey Kasem, and the list goes on. So many people, so many talented people can fill the shoes left by many talented creators. Eric Bauss has done it with Mel Blanc
Yeah.
and many more. I think it's especially necessary for us to continue the fight for human creation, human involvement in the arts. And I think so long as people can spot these talents, and I think you and I have been spotted to some degree,
Mm-hmm.
we get invited into the fold, and we're an up and coming face, and we're a new person. We're somebody who can pass the torch and play these roles, and who can take on these roles, and who can inherit these roles and keep them alive for eons and decades and decades.
Mm-hmm. And I especially think for my career, starting up in like the very indie portions of it, it would be like, we wanna, for example, we kind of want like a Grey Delisle type voice of, when she did like Catwoman or something, or, when she did this, like obviously these projects aren't union and they can't afford union performers at the moment, but they
Right.
were like, we're kind of looking for somebody to take that route, seeing your impressions and stuff. Would you be willing to do this job? And I'm like, yeah. So I think it definitely, especially with connections with professional actors and stuff like that too. That's how I met Grey Delisle. That's how I met Cissy Jones. I think it definitely, for me, it opened a lot of doors, but I kind of want to shift the conversation as well to your own unique presence. So for a while, I became like the impressionist person. I became the Azula girl. And I felt like I kind of had to, for me, from a personal standpoint, I kind of had to step away from impressions and stuff when I started getting serious with voiceover to kind of build my own unique presence just so I wasn't known as a person that can do other stuff. Because I'm like, hey, well, I can do other stuff, but I also kind of want you to have me for me. How do you kind of establish your own unique presence while also being known as somebody that can do other impressions?
Yeah, and I definitely do relate to that because for you it was Azula, I think you said.
Yeah.
And for me, it was I was the Simpsons guy, and I
Mm-hmm.
think I still am the Simpsons guy. And people know me for that. They know me as the Hank Hill guy. Sometimes they might know me as the Futurama guy, et cetera, et cetera. But being the Simpsons guy was sort of what catapulted me into the connections that I have today. But where I find a fine balance between being the Simpsons guy and being the Jayden guy is also presenting myself and showing them that I can do other things, showing them that I
Mm,
have a wider range outside of Simpsons voices. And that is just one thing that I can do. But also, presenting myself and being present with them when I see them live, when I see
yeah.
them in person. If they ask to see anything, that I can show them that I'm a dynamic performer that has much more that I can offer besides Simpsons voices. And I think that's what they want because, at the end of the day, what casting directors and producers want to see isn't just that you can mimic the voice, which is great, but they also need to see that you can act. And that is the greater half, I think, when it comes to voice acting, is
Mm,
acting, who can convey this emotion, who can portray this role. Can you do this character as they're 60 years old? Can you play them when they're 5 years old? Can you do them, in a certain struggle? All these things they need to understand that you can do. And I think, as far as myself, I've been able to demonstrate that I can show a range of characters and emotions that aren't just me mimicking characters.
hmm.
And you can certainly go further with that than confining yourself in a box and saying, "Oh, I can do SpongeBob. Let me do all the SpongeBob voices."
Yeah, exactly. How did you discover that you could do impressions? Was that something that you could always do, or did you was like, oh, how did you like how did you discover that you could do this?
Uh, I mean, the real answer is when I was 6, I had a Kermit doll, and I really wanted like Kermit to speak, but the doll couldn't speak, so I had to speak for Kermit. And I said, "Hi, I'm Kermit the Frog," and I was so like impressed with myself. It didn't sound as good as that when I was a kid, obviously, but to me, it sounded great. And when I was older, when I got a microphone and camera in my teens, I would record myself and I'd play it back and I'd match it. And then I learned how to do dubs. And from 2020 onwards is when I started doing the Simpsons dubs and started making actual Simpsons content and recreating scenes and spoofing scenes and making full on animated parodies of The Simpsons and King of the Hill and Beavis and Butthead and SpongeBob. That was sort of like how I knew that this could really be a profession for me
Mm,
and that I can actually make money as a sound alike and as a voiceover actor and as somebody that can work in animation. But it really just boils down to you listening to the character extensively and then playing yourself back to that and then matching it up to it in real time. And I think that's how you can find a basis for where that voice lies within you, where it lies in the headspace, where it lies on the screen.
mm. Yeah, it sounds funny you mentioned 2020 because I was literally the same way. It was like 2020 was a pandemic. I didn't have, I had worked in a restaurant, so they didn't need me, and I was just sitting there. I'm like, well, um, I guess I'll try this impressions thing because for me, I had kind of tried impressions when I was a kid. It was always something like just doing funny voices was my thing, but kind of doing the whole impressions route, I really wanted to be Katara. Katara was my main thing. But people were
Yeah.
like, no, no, you're an Azul. I'm like, "Oh, fine." So I got the costume, and then I was like, okay, well then I guess I'll try the voice impressions, and it's kind of what got me there. Do you have any tips and tricks for voice matching? Like, what's some advice you would give to somebody that wants to do impressions and voice matching?
I think it helps. Well, there's two things. If you're doing a celebrity voice, I personally don't stick to like movie clips of them. I think it's better
Mm.
to use interviews.
Oh.
That's where they're most relaxed, and that's how
Mm.
you can hear where their voice starts out. The movie stuff is secondary. They do movies after that, but
Yeah.
when you hear them actually as a candid conversation, Eddie Murphy doesn't talk like how he does in the movies. He's a lot more grounded as a person. I think if you can find the initial foundation, then you can build off of that and get into all the crazy sort of nuances that go into that. But for celebrities, I think it helps to get down to their natural speaking voice as opposed to the characters that they do.
Mm.
As far as animated characters, I say that because those are voices that people are putting on, and sometimes it is people's actual voices, but usually people are throwing their voice with animation because that's the case, it helps to watch behind the scenes footage of them doing
Yeah.
the voices. And if that's not available, and many times it's not, I
Mhm.
think it helps to listen to it as extensively as possible and listen to your own voice back and forth and figure out where the voice lies. Like when I did Homer, I used to talk like Homer like that, and I realized Homer's not up there.
Mm.
Homer's a lot deeper down here like that. And so I watched clips of Dan doing it, and how he has his chin. He has his chin sunk in like that, and it's a lot deeper and it's a lot more resonant. And as long as you can keep playing it back and listening to it back and improving it and finding exactly where the voice lies within you, in your throat and in your head and in your chest, then you can belt, you can yell, you can scream, you can laugh, you can do all the things you want as the character.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned about like I would always try that as well, accessing like behind the scenes. And usually I can't find anything. And when I do, it's somebody voice acting like, "Hi, I'm so and so. Nice to meet you." Like the most
Yeah.
simplest of things. Like, no, I want a behind the scenes of like the nitty gritty of like if a character's screaming or like in a tussle or like, I haven't been able to find, I get it. It's not, you know, like,
Hmm.
so one thing I do like is like the camera's not on me with voiceover, you're behind and you have like the privacy of everything. But I feel like it'd be really cool, especially for newer people, to see like the nitty gritty of voice acting instead of like they're obviously it's for PR. They're wearing full face of makeup and
Yeah.
nice clothing and like, "Hi, I'm
Right.
so and so."
Right.
Yeah,
But it does
I'm
not look like that on a day to day basis. No, we are sweaty.
no,
We're
yeah,
tired. We
yes.
are, sometimes I might take my jacket and shirt off and stuff like that. My hair goes wild.
Hmm.
It's not a pretty sight back there. It's like making hot dogs.
Yeah, but that's the nice part. But yeah, I would really like that. But another question I would have is for I get this question sometimes like, well, how do you just do it? How do you just make content? And I really sometimes I find myself not really knowing what to say besides just do it, just make it. It's never easy to put yourself out there, but what would your advice be to somebody like I want to start creating content, whether that be impression stuff, whether that be whatever type of content, but I'm scared to do it. Like how do you overcome doing it? Anxieties and fears
Honestly,
and
you
doubts.
you just have to do it. It's
Yeah,
like
okay.
jumping into a pool.
Yeah.
You really just can't hold back. If it's bad, if you don't like it, you can
Mhm.
delete it. You can screen it first with people. Say, hey, is this okay to post first? Like close confidants, people who are fans of whatever property,
Mhm.
and then post it that way. But honestly, just post it out there. I had no reservations about posting my SpongeBob, my King of the Hill, my Beavis and Butthead, my Simpsons voices. I just kept doing it.
Mhm.
And like sometimes the ideas come to me late at night, and I really don't put a whole lot of planning. Sometimes I do, but sometimes it's just an idea of something funny I want to do, and then I make it. And then I think those are the ones that have gone really viral.
Yeah.
I did one September of me reciting some of the debate quotes, and I posted that at like 3 a.m. and then I woke up and it had like 50,000 likes on
Yeah.
TikTok. It was blowing up. But Mark Hamill followed me and reposted
Yeah.
it, and all these celebrities. It was covered on the news and on a variety of different websites. I think like just put yourself out there. Like there's really no holding back.
Mhm.
If it's if it's not great and if nobody sees it, cool. If it blows up and it's super popular and people
Mhm.
like it, also cool, even better. Like, there's really nothing you can lose. There's no harm, no shame that should be found in that. If you're happy with it, if you're appreciative of the work that you put in and the efforts you put in, it ought to be recognized.
Exactly. 100%. And listen, like some of your content you're going to look back and be like, "Oh god, that just
Yeah,
means that you're improving. That just means that you're getting better." Like
right.
when people scroll all the way back on my TikTok, I'm like, get out of there. Focus on the new stuff.
Yeah,
But I'm like, listen, but I put it out there, and if you wait to a point where you're gonna be like, quote unquote, perfect, then look at all the time that's gone by that you could have been out there doing
exactly.
that. And for me, I think some of that was, I didn't have all the money in the world to do private coaching all the time. And I think for me, some of the voice matching and impressionists, like learning, listening to their voice and like the cadence and everything, it was my version of practice. Like before I found SkillsHub, what we have on SkillsHub is workout rooms. And whether you're a coach, whether you're a member on the site, you can create a workout room and it's completely free, part of the membership. And a bunch of you can join and like bounce off of each other. Like you can do whatever you want, D&D, script reading, improv practice, stuff like that, whatever you choose. And before I had found Skills Hub, and especially in the beginning, I don't think Skills Hub was a thing in 2020. I was like, well, This is all I've got. This is all I got for practice. So go out there, you guys. Do it and have fun because that's the whole part of it. Is having fun.
That reminds me of like the ads that pop up in the middle of the true crime I'm trying to watch. But first, I want to tell you about Grubhub. And you see Grubhub with a 50% off discount. Like, okay, no, that's actually very helpful though.
Yeah. Um so another question that I do have you ever used an impression when you're auditioning? Or have you ever been like, you know what, I think this character would actually go for kind of like this. Maybe you don't directly do that voice, but you kind of lean into it.
Yeah. Incidentally enough, when I was cast for Beavis and Butthead, I was asked to read for this character called the Manager, who is Beavis and Butthead's manager from Burger World
Mm-hmm.
in the original show. I did not see any designs of the character, so my understanding was that this was the manager that they had. This was the same design and character that they had for 7 seasons or so on the original series from the '90s. And I watched the clips of him and I studied the character. I got the voice down. He sounds something like that. He's played by Mike Judge. And so I did that voice. And when they had me do ADR for the episode, they showed me the character and it was this black guy. And I was doing like I was doing an impression of Mike Judge's character, and then playing it as this new character, and it works. It's actually I call it this little universe that they're in, where now all the managers are this asthmatic, obese, glasses wearing people who all sound like this, and this is exactly how they sound. So it does work, and I think that adds to the humor of it that
Yeah.
they are just perpetually stuck with this manager who sounds the exact same every time.
Interesting. I did an audition once, and normally the some advice I've gotten is like, yeah, go for it, or no, don't go for it. It depends on the project. Like for I would use some of my Wendy Malick voice sometimes. Like, listen, if they want Wendy Malick and it's union production, they're going to get Wendy Malick. Just be yourself. But for union projects, I found that it works, or non-union. Sorry, like more indie-based projects, it works because why not? And
Right.
people get comments like, "Is that Wendy Malick? Did Wendy Malick join?" I'm like, nope, it's just me. Sorry. Hi.
That's a compliment, though.
Right. Yeah. um, this question kind of shifts a little bit back to the content creation side. So, with being a content creator, how do you balance, the whole content creation aspect as well as pursuing voiceover, like with auditions, with networking and everything? How do you balance it all?
Sometimes there may be something that comes up, like an announcement of a show or of a movie or an animated project or something like that. And I realize that there's no chance in hell I'm gonna be getting that email. I'm gonna be hearing from this casting director or producer, anybody associated with that. So I take a plunge and I say, all right, well, what if I do something that's like adjacent to this franchise? Or what if
Mm,
I did something that was part of this franchise and just start making content, doing impressions of the show that they just announced or of the reboot or
mm,
whatever. And sometimes it does work, and people do see that, and they keep me in mind. They get in touch with me. They have me audition. I think as far as it goes, it's a matter of when it comes to balancing, it's a matter of I'll do it when I have free time and
yeah.
I'll do it when it's not overlapping anything,
Mm-hmm.
or if there's something that I personally want to work on, I'll make more content. I need to get noticed. I need to get my foot in the door, and people are more often are more likely to see what's on social media, what's trending, what's viral, who's the
Yep.
latest star, than they are a round of hundreds of auditions sitting in an email. So I think, in some ways you can
Mm,
catapult yourself
yeah.
and sort of like, oh, this guy's going viral. He's got a million views doing these voices.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we really need to do all these other things here? I think that can be beneficial. And that's,
Mm-hmm.
no disrespect to the people who audition, but sometimes the right person isn't the one that's in that lineup
Yeah.
and hasn't been discovered yet. And in many cases, people who are right for the role and should be the character sometimes end up getting it because of social media,
Yeah.
because of posting. That happened with Dracula on Hotel Transylvania. They saw his post. He was doing the blah blah blah, the Adam Sandler
Oh
character.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
right. he got the job because of that. As far as I understand it, he went
Mhm.
viral. People know him for that. He goes around in Disney parks making content, and that springboarded him into being a part of a major
Mhm.
franchise now. So it's definitely possible, and it should happen. That should be the case.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to say is, when it comes to content creation on the basis, like, have fun, go out there and make it. I feel like what's very important is, especially for those of us that are serious about voiceover, with impressions and content creation, it's always important to also build your foundations, just because, not from personal experience, but I've heard a few horror stories about people that are impressionist influencers, but they don't have any foundations. They don't know anything about voice acting, and it gets
Yeah.
them those doors opened. But when
Right.
they are unable to perform on the acting aspect as well, like voice impression, getting to do the voice is one thing. Can you imitate? Yes. But can you act is very important to get those
Hmm.
foundations established, because Jayden is so right. This is going to open a lot of doors for you with social media and everything. So you just have to make sure that you are ready when that door opens with your foundations and you know how to act. Because some of the stories I've heard of, like, oh my gosh, my impressions went viral. This casting director wants to talk to me. Have you
Right.
taken a class before? No, no, but I have the
Hmm.
impression down,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
nothing came through. So that's just a super important thing that I do want
Yeah.
to iterate out in there
Right.
too.
And I want to emphasize that as well because you're absolutely right. And like I said earlier, acting is the major component when it comes to voice acting.
Yes.
And I've had people who got noticed because of social media
Mm-hmm.
stuff and then end up auditioning and not getting it at all
Yeah.
because, and unfortunately, they don't have the acting experience. I think
Mm-hmm.
having that in your arsenal, having that in your pocket, and being able to whip out acting abilities when necessary comes to your benefit. And I'd
Oh
say
yeah.
continue to hone in on those abilities, continue to act alongside people and keep recording yourself. Some people have gone in the booth, with the recording with the audition, and it's like they can barely read. Oh, hey, oh, this is so great to see you here. But when they're mimicking the voice, oh, it's so great to see you here. It's a
Yes.
different thing. But you have to know how to act. You have to know how to script read. You have to know how to be prepared on the job when it happens. And sometimes these jobs come late in the game. I've
Mm-hmm.
had jobs where I was cast literally the day before, but it helps me being an actor and knowing how to act that I don't have to worry that I'm getting this script for the first or second time, reading it, and I'm ready to go. Other people may not have that success because all they're used to is being an impressionist as opposed to actually being an actor. And if you
Yes.
can combine those talents that I can act through this impression, you're at a better standing than you are without having one or the other.
100%. This actually sparked a question in my head that I had lost halfway through, but I found it again. um, for voices, have you ever felt that, like, do you do exercises or anything to consistently keep up with them? So, for example, I haven't done the Azula voice in forever, and I tried to do it one time. I was like, it was awful. I haven't done it in like a year and a half. I'm like, oh no, I need to go back and listen if I'm ever gonna do Azula content again. So, like, do you ever periodically have to listen or do any vocal, like, listening matching exercises to keep it up? Because it's kind of like riding a bike, but with some impressions that aren't too close to your voice. You have to keep it up and listen before you might lose it.
Yeah. And it's funny because like I was putting together a reel of my Homer voice from 2020 to 2025, and I recorded something at the very end so that we could hear how it sounds today. And I realized that at that point that I hadn't done the voice in several months.
Mm.
So like to keep up with that, and there's different techniques for each character, but like for that voice in particular, I remembered that I need a cold glass of water to do that voice and to get my
Ah.
voice like constricted enough to
Mm.
get deep. Like when you're out in the cold, your voice deepens because your
Yeah.
muscles constrict. So that helps me with deeper voices. That helps me with Homer. With like raspier characters that I'm doing, it helps to not do that in between when I want to do the voice. It just helps to like have that muscle memory and have done it enough that you're not straining yourself, that you're
Yeah.
not doing the voice constantly, that you're not walking up and doing, oh, hey, how are you? But like because I know how to do that and because I've prepared myself and like have the readiness to do that, then it sounds the same every time I do it.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I have one final question for you.
Hmm.
So it's, it's a lot trying to balance being a content creator and a voice actor seriously. And I feel like as actors in general, you're on a constant grind. So how do you combat burnout and stress in this industry?
Oh man, yeah. I admittedly some days I just don't audition at all, and it may come at the expense of a role I could have gotten, or very likely would have ended up in another bin somewhere. But honestly, it does not hurt to take some time to yourself and
No.
to relax and to detox and unwind. There are some days that are just so stressful, so tiring. There's just not enough hours in the day that I can accept the fact that maybe today's just not a good day to audition. Maybe I'm not fit for
Hmm.
this role if I'm not feeling up to auditioning. Other days, if I'm feeling more confident, if I'm feeling excited about the slides that
Hmm.
I'm getting, then I'll jump on that. I'll prepare for that. I'll research for it. But I honestly believe that there is no shame in just taking a moment to
Yes.
unwind and relax and saying, okay, we can get to this a little later. We don't need to jump on this right away. Okay, there's still time. I could do this at a moment of my convenience. But, if you're going to come at it with a sense of urgency, I think that may weaken your performance. I think you may be
Yes.
too quick to audition for something. I think there may be times, and there have been times with myself and with people I've helped with auditions who submitted too fast
Hmm.
and then realized, oh, this is how I should have read it.
Hmm.
This is how the voice needs to sound. This is how much better it could have been. There's no harm in just waiting a little bit, and certainly no harm in submitting maybe a few hours earlier, or so. I think so long as you're putting your mental health and your abilities
Hmm.
ahead of whatever prospective audition you may have, then I think you're at a better footing in the long run than not recognizing those things.
1000%. I have to praise you for that right now because I have seen, that's such a like uh a healthy mental space to be in because I do the same thing. Like if I'm running around 500 places at once and the auditions due, let's say like tomorrow, and my day is slammed, it's due tomorrow 10 a.m. I'm not going to break myself in half to do it. And I truly
Right.
believe that if there's all these obstacles in the way, then I'm like, well, it might not be meant for me. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but I'm not, even if I were to have time, I know I'm going to sound exhausted and they're going to hear that. I have seen
Yeah.
even industry professionals be like, "No, I have to do this. I have to do this." I'm like, "Okay, well, go on ahead. You're breaking yourself in half and it's just not mentally healthy, and then they're going to hear it in your performance, and then you just exhausted yourself for what?" Like, that's such
Exactly.
a very important, it's so important to take care of yourself. And I feel like especially for beginners, they focus so much on the craft, which is obviously important, but your mental health and your perspective towards this is vital to continue it, to keep at it. It's not a race, and I feel like I made this
That's
mistake
right.
100%. My first coach was like, "Hey, you're doing good, but you do need to have a life outside of this." I'm like, Psh,
Yeah.
nah, a
Yeah.
life? And then I suffered extreme burnout. I didn't do this for like
Right. Yeah.
months. I'm like, that's my
Yeah.
bad. I did
You
not
front
listen to
load
my
yourself.
coach. Yeah,
Right.
so
When I had my agencies, I was doing 5 auditions a day. I did not need to do that.
mm-mm,
It would be perfectly okay if I did it and submitted the day that they were due or the day before they
exactly.
were due. But
Hmm.
instead, I foolishly chose, if several things were due in several days, I'd say, okay, I'll get them all done all at once.
Hmm.
And now I've got voices that are like overlapping or are sounding too similar or are sounding tired,
Hmm.
are sounding, not up to what I want them to do, and I end up wanting to do it again. So there's really no harm in taking a step back and pacing yourself and saying that I don't need to do this right away. Like you said, it's not a race.
Hmm.
Okay. I consider it more of a jog, but
Yeah.
and a leisurely jog. This is something you can pick up, you can put down whenever necessary, whenever you need to, but so long as you keep at it and remember that it's better in the long run for you if it is, then to maintain that focus and to uphold your skills and to hone
Hmm.
in on them.
100%. This has been such an amazing, valuable conversation. Thank you, Jayden, for coming on here. Before we let you go, where can we find you on like social media and all the
Oh
things?
yeah. So everything is all the same name. I'm the only person that has this name. So Jayden LeBron on YouTube. I think it's called Jayden LeBron VO on YouTube. And then my TikTok is Mr. Jayden LeBron. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of it is just the same name, Jayden Libran. You can find me there. That's where I post.
Amazing. Thank you, Jayden, again for coming on
Of
SkillsHub on
course.
Air. Thank you all for tuning in, and be sure to stay tuned for who next week's guest is. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.